Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. We are live from Atlanta, Georgia. This is a special edition of the Overtime Drive, live from SEC Media Days, Day 1 recap. I am Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate, joining me as he always does. Guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications, check us out via podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, you can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we are powered by our friends over at FanDuel. Make sure you head over to FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. SEC Media Days in Atlanta, Georgia. Day 1 is officially in the books, and we are here reacting to everything that all 4 coaches and Commissioner Greg Sankey had to say on Day 1 here in Atlanta. As always, guys, I am Chris Phillips. He is Dave Shumate. This is the Overtime Drive, SEC Unfiltered's SEC football show, and the best SEC football show on the internet. Dave, what's going on, man? I appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate you being here with me, my friend, as we stand here live in the big room on Monday afternoon. What a day when it was. Your first SEC Media Days, by the way. First impressions, first thoughts.
My first SEC Media Days, right? A little spread out from what you talk to people around the building, a little bit compared to what we've seen in years past. Some guesses where it could be next year. CP actually heard another guess. We heard St. Louis, heard Orlando, maybe another one.
The O-Town.
That's what BK said. BK threw out O-Town.
So we got St. Louis and Orlando. I'm keeping fingers crossed for Nashville for very obvious reasons.
There. I mean, let's flip a coin.
I'd rather go to Orlando than St. Louis. No offense. No offense to our MIZ folks.
I say that because usually I feel like when you're watching it on TV, again, first timer here, you usually hear Greg Sankey announce where the next year's SEC Media Days are going to be, but we did not hear that. But no, I mean, Chris, you're right. It was the commish let us off. Then we had Coach Kelly, Coach Beamer, Coach Kiffin, and then Coach Lee really wrapping up today. I mean, just surface level we'll get into it obviously, but no big from the coaches, soundbite outside of like Lane Kiffin throwing his jab out a little bit at Hugh Freeze, poking fun. He said he didn't have a problem with Hugh Freeze, but I think we know that where that comes from. That was really it, though. I mean, other than that, nobody was real.
Everybody's really buttoned up. Everybody's really buttoned up. I mean, I think obviously we live in the culture of clip culture and social media, and we do what we do, right? So I think these coaches are very well aware of things they might say. And I think, too, what we see, Dave, I mean, have the coaches ever known less about their football teams than they do right now? I mean, a lot of them don't even know the answers to the questions that they're sometimes getting asked when you're asking about personnel. And then when you start talking expectations, we'll get into the coaches, obviously, starting. Let's start with Brian Kelly, who sounded really, really confident. I thought it was a mix today. A lot of the coaches sound confident, but we also heard some temper some expectations. Starting with Brian Kelly, it seems like they're really leaning into the expectations. I mean, I think that was the big takeaway from him. The quote that stood out to me from Brian Kelly talking about Garrett Nussmeier, he's expecting a year 2 jump like a Jaden Daniels had. He's expecting that from Nuss, which I thought was the big takeaway. But Kelly and them obviously understand the expectations, and they're embracing them.
Yeah, no, I mean, you make a good point there. From talking to other people internally, it does sound like I was just on a show in Louisiana talking about how Garrett Nussmeier, again, we're not ever going to throw the Joe Burrow 18-19 jump. I think that's just a little it's way too loose out there to say that. But I think they do anticipate him taking that next step and potentially being probably the best quarterback in this league, the most polished. I said there was no quote, CP, but you bringing up what he said about Garrett Nussmeier, he was pretty all in on his offensive line, even though they lost Will Campbell, Emory Jones, guys like Garrett Dellinger. But he said, to his point, we had this conversation a lot, portal, high school development. They do have 5 guys that they're planning on starting from the offensive line that they signed. They're high school kids that have been in their program with Brad Davis, LSU's offensive line coach. So that, I mean, as me and Chris know, everybody follows the sport of football. It's a developmental sport. No better spot to be developmental than from maybe outside of the quarterback spot than the offensive line position. So he is right. That triggered me as like, all right, he was real confident in that offensive line. So that's something I would stand out from Brian Kelly. But you're right. Normal politician self, very well put together, great public speaker, had his family out to the side. I thought Brian Kelly did a good job. Yeah, I mean, he gave me, if you made me say confidence meter, yay or nay, and I had to answer if it's going up after hearing them in LSU today, I would say I have them in the SEC championship game. So it's about, makes me feel better about my pick for LSU and where they'll be in December.
And a lot of our LSU friends that we talk to and conversate with, and those within the LSU media, they seem to be ready to run through a brick wall today. I mean, it is talking season, so we know that goes. You can also tell, too, they understand, and everybody wanted to ask the question. Heck, I wanted to ask the question. the emphasis on week one and the fact that they haven't won season openers under his watch. They haven't won a season opener in the last, 5 seasons or so.
Yeah.
So I think they understand that Clemson game, how big it is, but you can tell, I mean, again, they're leaning into the expectations. They've invested in the program. They, as far as the fundraising and the NIL, they went out and got him the best roster he's had in Baton Rouge. He's very much, been forthcoming about that. It's the best roster they've ever had. So again, what you'd expect from Brian Kelly, very polished, very confident. And you had a great question for him too about Austin Thomas. You talked about their organizational, the positive momentum they've built within the program, which again, I thought it was a really great question from you, but a lot of positive momentum at LSU, but week one's going to come, and depending on what happens, it's could be feeling some type of way after week one.
You bringing up some of this stuff because it feels like Brian Kelly was so long ago. He's at 9 a.m. You're right. I mean, he had some comments talking about maybe they changed some stuff the way they go about.
I thought that was interesting. I thought that was interesting.
Clemson, though, they're just 1-0 logo. He even mentioned maybe even throwing up music they don't like while they're working out, which interesting perspective. I'm sure he's talked to some people that maybe that was something that could help them. But yeah, I mean, when you haven't won a season opener since 2019, since Joe Burrow, we were just talking about it, was Joe Burrow was the quarterback the last time LSU started the season 1-0. Yeah, you're going to go try a lot of different things. And Brian Kelly, he knows, he's like, I don't want to start off 0-4 here as a head coach in my 4th year in opening games.
Moving to Shane Beamer, who was the second coach. And guys, we're going to go backwards at the end. We'll go to Greg Sankey's comments at the very end of the show. But Shane Beamer, I thought, was interesting because there was a lot of confidence. There was some tempering of expectations, like you mentioned. He started out out the gate when he was asked by, I believe it was Paul Feinbaum, can you win an SEC championship in South Carolina? He quit back. Absolutely believe we can. He also mentioned, I didn't come here to go 7-5. I came here to win titles. But like you mentioned, Dave, you made the point to me. It kind of felt like within his press conference, he sort of, he wanted to make sure people were aware, hey, like we've done some big things. We're expecting to do big things this year, but we were pretty close last year to 2 or 3 of those swing games going the other way. So I think he understands when you got a player like Lenora Sellers, a quarterback who was here today, you have a lot of confidence, but when you lost as much as they did, especially on the defensive side, and I think that's where you and our worries come from with them, let's keep expectations somewhat realistic. So I think it's a balancing act because you don't want to go too far overboard and set expectations that you can't even reach. And then if you go 8-4 or even 9-3, people are like, well, you didn't have a good year based off expectations set in the preseason and the hype that you were pushing in the preseason.
He even pushed that. He was like, we're ranked where we are right now in a lot of national polls because we won 9 games and we got our quarterback back. I mean, he said that, which is like you said, that's what most surface level people do look at. But then you pull back the layers of South Carolina, and Shane Beamer's a smart guy. He knows you lose 9 starters on defense. You lose most of your defensive linemen. You lose your interior defensive line, which that's another developmental position. You're not replacing that in a year. I don't care if you do bring Gabriel Brown-Londidi in. He could end up being a good player. It's just a lot of depth you lose. And let's be honest, that was a defense that scored a lot of points last year. That put a lot of pressure on opposing offenses right out of the gate. I mean, the Oklahoma game comes to mind. But no, you're right. I mean, he mentioned CP, everybody wants to talk about how we could have been in the playoffs. We lost these close games to Alabama and LSU, but he's like, we played Old Dominion to open up the year and had a close win there, close win against Missouri there. He's like, it goes both ways. Again, Auburn lost a lot of close games. South Carolina won a lot of close games last year. So sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way that year. And I think he was saying in his exact quote, I think it was, I guess a little bit, I'm paraphrasing here, was, hey, look, and we're built for the future too. So this year will be fine. Everybody should be excited, but we're built on for 26 and beyond as well. So I don't think he thinks South Carolina, and for the South Carolina fans listening, me and Chris are sitting here saying they're going to be bad. I just think he's smart enough to know you lost a lot on special teams too. He said that. He's like, we're replacing kicker, punter, long snapper. There's just a lot of unknowns. And I think he knows they may not match that 9-win total, but I'll say this, CP, the schedule works out for him. Those first 5 games, you can iron out a lot of those wrinkles, getting Lenore Sellers up to par with new OC Mike Shula. Shane Beamer mentioned him. But no, I still feel like South Carolina's in that 6 to 7 win range this year, and that's not a bad year coming off what you did last year. You just lost so much on defense.
I will say this too. I think you look back at Shane Beamer's tenure at South Carolina, just on a media days note. I remember his first SEC media days in 2021. You can tell he's gotten very comfortable in his skin. I feel like even just with the media in general, he is much more comfortable at the podium. Does a really good job articulating things. You can see that today, right? I think you can just really tell. And you know what helps? Winning. Yeah. Winning helps you get a little comfortable too, and not feeling like you're on a hot seat or kind of trying to prove yourself amongst all these SEC coaches. So Lane Kiffin was the next coach to start the afternoon meeting. Most notably, Great tan, Coach Kiffin. Just came off the boat, obviously. He was looking great. He was his normal Lane Kiffin self. You mentioned, Dave, I want you to talk about it because you were in here in the big room with him. I was bouncing around or what have you. Disinterested was the word that you kind of used, which, again, kind of status quo for him. He's the social media spurrier. I don't know that he really loves doing this stuff.
He's an introvert.
Yeah, he's an introvert. I think he likes going on the boat, likes fishing, likes being with his family, likes coaching football. I don't know the media stuff, but he likes the social media jabs. The Hugh Freeze stuff came up, which was really funny. Obviously mentions Hugh and I are friends, have respect for each other. And then at the very end, he throws in heard his golf game is doing well. That's good for him. Yeah.
He talked about himself fishing, but made it clear it was a dead period.
Right. Lane is he's Lane Kiffin. He's one of one. So.
Yeah. I mean, I asked him 2 questions in one and got pretty simple. Depth. What does he consider depth in today's college football at the back end? Because they lost a lot of guys in the secondary. He kind of yielded that to Pete Golden. Which could ask Pete, but Pete's not here today. And then asked about what he thought. He kept harping on a little bit on people not going over the salary cap, and I asked him what he thought the proper punishment should be for that, and he didn't really want to give a direct answer to that either. But to Chris's point, I get it. I mean, you're on the boat now; you're here in front of a lot of people.
He wanted to get back on the boat,
and then also, you could tell
his mentality.
He reflected a little bit. You could tell, again, I will say I do not think he leaves Ole Miss now. And I was somebody probably this time last year and further back would have said
he was with a lead name. We were talking about going to Florida.
I think his roots, his parents passing while they were in Oxford, his brother Chris now moving with his wife and kids. He's on staff. I don't know. I just think he's very comfortable. Lane getting back together with his ex-wife. I don't know. I think the stars aligned. He will be in Oxford. He just talks about it. He sounds just like a little different now, where he reflects a little bit more. And
you could tell he's matured. I mean, he doesn't come since the early days.
Singer guy,
right?
Yeah, going back to when Lane Kiffin was the Tennessee coach in 2009. I mean, yeah, you weren't talking about that. He came up very mature, but to his 2025 team, didn't have a lot of answers. Just agreed with people. Coach, you lost a lot. Yeah, we did. It was just even to my question, yeah, Coach, you lost a lot in the secondary. His first thing was yeah, we did lose a lot of NFL guys in the secondary. But to our point earlier, what we talked about, Chris opened this thing up. A lot of these coaches don't even know what they're going to have. I think Ole Miss is going to be good on offense. I have major concerns on defense, and I don't necessarily think it's a Pete Golding issue. You do a record number a year of NFL draft picks, especially on that side of the football. You just don't replace that in 1 year.
Dave, speaking of evolution and growth, one of the best questions and answers of the day came for the final coach of the day, that being Clark Lee of Vanderbilt, where he literally teared up at the podium talking about his evolution as a coach and as a person to get to a point where he could get Vandy to a season like last year. I thought that was really awesome and a great moment. Clark Lee was kind of what I expected, though. A lot of confidence from him. I think he understands still. And I really respect the fact, he's at a place like Vanderbilt and people want to dog it for what it is, and that's fine. But, he sees the vision. There's a clear path in Clark Lee's mind and what he's got for the program. He loves Vanderbilt, obviously. He played there, born and raised in Nashville. He bleeds the black and gold. But I don't know if it was even Clark Lee that was the biggest takeaway from Vandy, more so Diego Pavia, who I think we would have expected. If you'd have asked me who's going to steal the show on day one at SEC Media Days, I would have guessed Diego. But first, we'll stick with Clark Lee. Thoughts on what he had to say? Obviously, it's a lot of chatter about following up what was such an incredible season last year.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Clark Lee, you could tell Clark Lee, it's hard to dislike Clark Lee. And to Chris's point, he is a perfect fit at Vanderbilt. Obviously, graduated.
Said the same thing after last year when he spoke.
I mean, like you were mentioning, I don't think a lot of people even really listen to a lot of his press conferences, but you do listen to him. You're like, man, this
football
guy speaks to me.
Just
you can tell he got
guy,
emotional.
Dude.
It meant something to him. And him talking about, even I somewhat forgot. I mean, I didn't, but we all forget a little bit. It's his first game, they lost to East Tennessee State at Vanderbilt and come full circle, and he beats Alabama. I'm sure that dude was just dude, what have we accomplished here in 3 or 4 days?
I'm sure it blew his mind, really.
And then you start looking deeper into the team. And when I was doing this last week, really my game-by-game predictions, that's why I have them at that potential 6-7 win mark, because they have so much coming back. I mean, Diego Pavia gets a lot of that coverage, but outside of some of the receivers they lost, brought in more depth, have enough guys back to go win on the offensive line, brought some depth to support them, have some guys back on defense. We know about Eli Stowers, which you're right. I mean, you talked about that a little bit, Chris.
Interesting he wasn't here. Yeah.
But no, I mean, I like Vanderbilt. They're for sure going to get someone again. Is it maybe to the level of Alabama? I don't know about that, but if I was going to give you an early game to keep an eye on, watch when they go to Columbia early in the year. Could potentially be. When you're talking about the losses that South Carolina has on defense, that could be a very tough preparation for them going into that game early in the year.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, South Carolina too. Excuse me, like I mentioned, Diego Pavia. Actually, you got me thinking about that South Carolina game when Vandy takes him on, tries to break the streak. But Diego Pavia, electric factory. I mean, there may not be a more fun player in college football on and off the field than Diego Pavia. And I know some people roll their eyes when they hear that, and they roll some eyes when they hear him speak. It works perfectly for him being at Vandy, because I think Vandy's a place, Dave. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I don't know that any publicity is bad publicity, because they're not going to be talking about Vandy any other way outside of just unless you really broke through and won 8, 9, 10 games, something crazy like that. But he's the perfect fit for them. Obviously, he comes in here wheeling, dealing, a lot of confidence, says that, at Vandy we're trying to go win a national championship. He said, they asked him about being a sleeper. He said, nobody's sleeping on Texas. Nobody's sleeping on Georgia. Why should they sleep on us? It's just, I don't care what you think about it, if it's ridiculous or whatever. Like, you have to respect the fact that Diego Pavia doesn't care about what's happened before him. He believes in what Vanderbilt can be, not what it's always been. And it takes those kind of guys to change your program with a delusionally believe they can be successful. So say whatever you want. Diego Pavia delivered again.
And he even used the word we were standing right there. He was sitting right over there. He even used the word delusional. And I was even listening to some video the other day when I was driving, talking about the differences in the great ones. You have to almost be delusional where your dreams are so big it does scare you a little bit. And it seems like he kind of drifts towards that as well. Mentioned his favorite player growing up was Johnny Manziel. You totally see that. I mean, maybe not to the extent of the off the field stuff, but I thought he was a little tempered as much. You can tell he's gotten a lot better from a media groom.
I mean, he was asked.
He knows what to say and what not.
Yeah, he was asked about like Hugh Freeze in the Auburn game, and he absolutely could have taken a jab and shot. But he just said, "Hey, like, they're a great program. I've had success against them. They're coming to Nashville. Should be a great game." Like, so he had his moments. You can obviously tell, and I'm sure Clark Lee had a conversation with him, like, "Hey, like, be yourself."
I thought I saw the Vandy SID sitting in their corner, like looking at the questions, being like, "Come on, buddy, we only got a few. How many more we got? Ring the buzzer." Yeah, but no, I mean, they even tried to get him to fish on Ryan Williams' quote, and he didn't say. He's like, I mean, they're a good team. I think his exact quote was, "Whoever prepares the best that week will win." Yeah. Just a very
The good thing about Pavia was the quips or the one-liners, the zingers, however you want to phrase them. They weren't about any opponents. They were about Vandy. Yeah. They were about like what he can control. So
they asked him who talked the most smack last year. He said Kentucky was the answer.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't expect that.
That was the game they won, but he got hurt. Someone asked you.
That was the week after the Bama game.
And I picked against me. I thought I had written all over
you and I did the preview.
Yeah. Was wrong on that one, but no, he did mention, like, for people who are wondering, was he banged up some in the back half of the year? Because remember we were talking about that, right? He just doesn't feel like he has that juice or that physicality. He did mention he did do something to his ankle or foot in that Kentucky game, and it lingered. And he said he didn't really feel 100% the rest of the year. But I mean, there's a lot of players in college football that can say that. I mean, people are dealing with stuff, and I thought he had a mature response to it. What did you learn after your first year of being in the SEC and going through this meat grinder year, week in, week out? And he said, staying in the training room until I feel good, not just when I'm just tired of sitting there. So kind of a mature way of getting his body ready to go to war on Saturdays.
Yeah. Finally, Dave, leading off the day, saving maybe the best for last, maybe the most high impact for last, Commissioner Greg Sankey. Anytime Greg Sankey obviously takes the podium, it's going to be noteworthy. It's going to be newsworthy with everything going down in college football. Thoughts on what he said? I thought one of the most one of the quotes that stood out to me was the 8-game versus 9-game conference schedule. He kind of used as an opportunity to take a shot, maybe at some people that have taken shots at the SEC about the scheduling, see if they want to trade schedules with us. He then did mention, though, what's the 2026 schedule going to look like? Well, we don't know, just in case. We might go to 9 conference games. So it's not off the table, obviously. He mentioned college athletics is not broken. It's strained. It's under stress. What stood out to you about Greg? Because, again, I feel like people go into this, so many want answers from him. And in my mind, I'm like, he obviously doesn't have them all, right? Yeah. So, like, anything jump out to you from Greg Sankey that –
No, maybe I'm looking into it a little bit, but it feels like sometimes – he feels like, why am I always the guy? Like, it's kind of like the face of the program. Maybe he embraces that internally. I don't know. But, like, you feel like you never have to really hear from Tony Petitti. It's kind of, I mean, not kind of. Greg Sankey is definitely the face of the sport from the commissioner world. And everybody kind of looks at him, kind of attacks him at times if you don't agree with some of his stuff. But you're right. I mean, outside of the little shot at Brett Yormark in the Big 12 from last year, I mean, people were asking him about, where he's going to get corporate sponsors like the Big 12 did with like the WWE and Uber and stuff like that. And it didn't sound like he's like, I've had those conversations. We're just not down that road, which makes sense because the SEC is a bigger business than the Big 12 right now. So therefore they don't have to go get in with the WWE or WWE SmackDown, stuff like that. I mean, it speaks for itself. But no, Sankey usually, I feel like I've gotten more from Sankey's press conferences in the past than I did this year, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it did seem like he was kind of reserved a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it might just come down to he just doesn't have all the answers. Yeah, so I mean, it's a lot of change, right? Everybody wanted, answers about the house settlement case, the revenue. Which thankfully I'm selfishly glad we're talking football and less of that. But always interesting when Greg Sankey speaks. I mean, Dave, the other big takeaway as we wrap up here on day one of SEC Media Days, I'd kind of just like to get your thoughts and your impressions of the event. I mean, obviously, it's a great time. My big takeaway, obviously, and every year this is mine, successful day one, seeing so many of our colleagues and peers in the space, people we've either done work with or have conversated with on social media or know really well, barely know. It's really, really cool, the characters that you run into here at this event.
No, you make a good point. It's people. I just met a guy, a BK over at Texas for our Texas Sports Unfiltered stuff we do with them. Or I'd never met him before, but done plenty of shows. I've never even met, for the people who don't know, Bear Thompson, Cole. We both never met
get him
Cole.
on Wednesday.
I don't even know if he's a real person. We'll pick him up tomorrow from the airport. But it is funny. You see some of these people that have been on your shows or you've DM'd and you're finally meeting them for the first time. And you see, you're like, oh, there's that guy. Oh, there's that guy. But no, overall, I could see why this is a really cool event every year. I mean, we've always known it's a cool event, even if you've never attended. But I could see from a media perspective, it's almost like a first day back to school, kickoff football season, get to see all your friends. Hey, how has everybody come back from the summer? I mean, what, CP? You've been in the media game longer than I have. You may see them once other year, depending if the team you cover.
I mean, this is the one time I'll see some of these guys all year. Maybe twice if I go to their city or we run into each other there. But yeah, a lot of these guys, this is the opportunity. Again, it's kind of a big networking event. We care what the coaches and players say, but that's kind of what it boils down to. So a lot of fun. Day one in the books, an electric day one at that. Day two is set up to be a straight up movie here in Atlanta, Georgia. We'll come back to you live yet again tomorrow night here on the Overtime Drive to recap everything in the ATL. 4 great coaches. I know we've got Steve Sarkisian, Hugh Freeze,
Kirby Smart, Josh
Heupel. So it is a big,
tomorrow's probably the best day.
Probably the best overall day, top to bottom. There will be storylines abound. I'm sure many more great quotes. We'll have Arch Manning here. The Arch hype. The biggest crowd we've seen thus far was around Diego Pavia. I got a great feeling that Arch Manning's going to surpass that. It is going to be absolutely insane. But either way, guys, appreciate you all tuning in. As always, make sure you check out our friends over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU. We're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. They're the official partners and sponsors of this trip to Atlanta, the SEC Unfiltered Tour, and everything in between. College football, college basketball, NFL, NBA, NHL, MLB, you name it. You can bet on it with our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to get that $250 deposit bonus when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get that $250 bonus today. Again, guys, as always, make sure, like, subscribe, turn notifications, check us out via podcast or get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Chris Phillips. This is the Overtime Drive, SEC Unfiltered's SEC football show and the best SEC football show on the internet. Till next time, y'all take care. Peace.